Imagine making basketball history on Friday, only to become the biggest controversy in the league less than 24 hours later. One night, the entire sports world was celebrating Caitlin Clark. The next, everyone was asking the same question: why does it always seem to happen to her? What happened over that weekend completely changed the conversation, and fans still haven't stopped debating it. Friday night in Indianapolis felt different. The arena had that rare electricity where every possession felt important. Every time Clark touched the basketball, fans leaned forward, knowing they might witness something unforgettable. And that's exactly what happened. Despite still being on a minute's restriction, Clark delivered one of the most incredible performances professional basketball has ever seen. She exploded for 45 points, 10 assists, 4 steals, and 2 blocks. A statistical masterpiece so rare that only a handful of players across both the men's and women's professional game have ever produced anything remotely similar. She accomplished all of it in under 30 minutes. Commentators struggled to find comparisons. Some mentioned Michael Jordan, others brought up Luka Doncic. Social media exploded with highlight clips, reaction videos, and endless debates about where this performance ranked among the greatest individual games ever played. For one incredible night, there was no controversy, no officiating debate, no drama. Only basketball. It looked like the beginning of another unforgettable chapter in Clark's rapidly growing career. But everything changed almost immediately. Less than 24 hours later, the celebration disappeared. The headlines changed, and basketball fans everywhere were suddenly talking about something completely different. Just 90 seconds into Indiana's matchup against the New York Liberty, Clark collided with a hard screen while trying to fight through traffic. She hit the floor, immediately looked toward the nearest official, expected a whistle. None came. Instead, after briefly speaking with the referee, Clark was assessed a technical foul. Just like that. Before most fans had even settled into their seats, the game's biggest storyline had nothing to do with basketball. It was another technical. Because it was her 6th technical foul of the season, the call also came with a $1,000 fine under league rules. Even more importantly, it moved her closer to the automatic suspension threshold. Almost overnight, the conversation shifted from celebrating one of the greatest individual performances in recent memory to counting technical fouls and discussing possible suspensions. Fans couldn't believe how quickly everything had changed. Friday, basketball history. Saturday, league controversy. The timing alone made people ask difficult questions. How does a player dominate the sport one night and become the center of officiating discussions before the next game is even 2 minutes old? Those questions spread across social media almost instantly. Meanwhile, Indiana quietly handled business on the court. The Fever defeated the Liberty 108-88, earning one of their biggest wins of the season. Kelsey Mitchell led the way with an outstanding scoring performance, and Indiana strengthened its playoff position with another important victory. Normally, that would have been the headline. Instead, most fans barely talked about the final score. They talked about the technical foul. They talked about the fine. They talked about what it meant going forward. For many viewers, it wasn't simply about one whistle. It was about a pattern they believed had been developing throughout the season. Supporters pointed to previous games where Clark appeared to receive unusually physical defensive attention. Others argued that referees were simply enforcing league rules consistently. The debate quickly became one of the hottest topics across basketball media. To understand why emotions became so intense, many fans looked back to June. Earlier in the season against Phoenix, Clark received another technical foul that immediately sparked debate. Some observers believed the situation could have been handled differently. Others felt the officials made the correct decision based on league rules. The league later reviewed the play and allowed the technical foul to stand. That decision became another talking point among fans who were already closely watching every whistle involving Clark. By this point, every technical foul carried extra weight. Every interaction with officials became a headline. Every close call was analyzed from multiple camera angles. Fair or unfair, Clark had become the center of nearly every major conversation surrounding the league. And whenever that happens, every decision is magnified, every whistle is questioned, and every game becomes much bigger than basketball itself. But for many fans, the controversy didn't begin with that sixth technical foul. In their minds, it had been building for months. The debate stretched back to early in the season, when another technical foul involving Caitlin Clark sparked widespread discussion across social media. That single decision became the moment many supporters started paying much closer attention to every whistle involving the league's biggest rookie star. Almost immediately, basketball timelines filled with screenshots, slow-motion clips, and side-by-side comparisons. Fans began posting videos of similar reactions from other players. Some argued those moments appeared more emotional, or even more confrontational, yet resulted in no technical foul at all. Whether those comparisons told the complete story became a matter of intense debate, but one thing was undeniable: the conversation wasn't fading. It was growing louder after every game. One question kept appearing everywhere online: were technical fouls being enforced consistently across the league? As the season continued, every new whistle involving Clark seemed to add another layer to that discussion. By the time the sixth technical foul arrived, many fans weren't reacting to a single call anymore. They were reacting to what they believed was an ongoing pattern. Every box score was examined. Every replay was slowed down. Every referee interaction was clipped, shared, and debated across social media. Fair or unfair, every decision involving Clark suddenly carried far more attention than an ordinary technical foul ever would. And once that happens, every whistle becomes bigger than the game itself. The discussion wasn't limited to fans either. Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White was asked multiple times about officiating throughout the season. Without accusing officials of wrongdoing, she acknowledged that managing technical fouls had become something the team needed to think carefully about. Her comments suggested that emotional moments on the court could have significant consequences, making discipline and communication an important part of the team's approach. That alone caught people's attention. When a head coach begins discussing officiating strategy publicly, many viewers naturally assume the issue has become impossible to ignore. It wasn't just internet chatter anymore. It had become part of the basketball conversation. Soon, national sports shows began weighing in. Analysts debated whether Clark's games were being officiated consistently. Others argued that the intense spotlight surrounding the league's biggest attraction naturally meant every call would receive far more scrutiny than usual. Regardless of which side people supported, the discussion expanded well beyond Wnba circles. Casual sports fans, many of whom had never paid attention to technical foul rules before, were suddenly talking about officiating standards. That's when the story took on a life of its own. Once a league-wide debate reaches mainstream sports media, controlling the narrative becomes much more difficult. Every nationally televised game creates new talking points. Every controversial whistle generates thousands of new opinions. Every replay is analyzed from every possible angle. Then fans noticed another statistic. Clark found herself among the league leaders in technical fouls. The number surprised many observers because her playing style differs from several other players near the top of that list. Clark is known primarily for her long-range shooting, elite passing, and fast-paced offensive creativity. She's not typically recognized as a player whose game revolves around constant physical battles in the paint. That contrast fueled even more online discussion. Some fans believed the numbers deserved closer examination. Others argued statistics alone don't explain why technical fouls are called, since they often depend on conversations with officials, emotional reactions, or unsportsmanlike conduct rather than physical play. Either way, the questions continued. And when clear answers don't satisfy everyone, people begin creating their own explanations. Perhaps the most remarkable part wasn't the debate itself, it was how organized the fan community became. Within seconds of every technical foul, social media filled with updated box scores, time-stamped video clips, referee breakdowns, and detailed replay threads. Fans tracked every call almost in real time, Some documented each technical foul throughout the season, comparing situations game after game in an effort to understand whether officiating appeared consistent. Whether those conclusions were ultimately correct or not, one fact became impossible to ignore. Very few players in the league generated this level of attention after a routine whistle. By mid-season, nearly every technical foul involving Caitlin Clark had become a national basketball story, turning ordinary officiating decisions into headline news and ensuring the debate would continue long after the final buzzer. By this point, the conversation had grown far beyond a few frustrated social media posts. Fans weren't simply reacting anymore. They were documenting everything. After nearly every controversial whistle, screenshots appeared within minutes. Video clips were time-stamped, replay angles were compared, and long threads analyzed similar situations involving other players. For many supporters, it felt less like ordinary fan discussion and more like an independent review process, happening in real time. Whether those comparisons ultimately proved inconsistency or not, they ensured that almost every officiating decision involving Caitlin Clark faced immediate public scrutiny. That's an unusual level of attention for any professional league. Every technical foul, every conversation with an official, every disputed call, nothing escaped the spotlight. And when millions of people are watching that closely, every decision becomes part of a much larger narrative. There was another layer to the story that many fans began discussing: money. Before the season, the Wnba updated its disciplinary policy for technical fouls. Under the league's rules, repeated technical fouls carry increasing financial penalties, meaning players who continue accumulating them can face significantly larger fines as the season progresses. For Clark, who had already moved near the top of the technical foul leaderboard, those penalties became increasingly meaningful. The amount itself wasn't what generated debate. Instead, many fans questioned whether repeated fines addressed the real issue if they believed the underlying officiating concerns still existed. Others argued the league was simply enforcing rules that apply equally to every player. That disagreement became another major talking point across basketball media. Clark herself has generally avoided making the conversation about individual calls. Instead of publicly demanding that specific technical fouls be erased, she has repeatedly emphasized something much broader. She has spoken about the importance of improving officiating consistency and has expressed support for expanding full-time professional officiating throughout the league. It's an important distinction. Rather than asking for special treatment, Clark's public comments have focused on creating a system she believes would benefit every player, every coach, and every game. Supporters viewed that position as a long-term solution. Critics argued that officiating is difficult in every professional sport and that controversial calls are unavoidable. Regardless of where people stood, the discussion shifted from one player to the league itself. Then came the question nobody in Indiana wanted to ask. What happens if another technical foul pushes Clark over the suspension threshold? According to league rules, once a player reaches the required number of technical fouls, an automatic one-game suspension is triggered. No dramatic hearing, no lengthy appeal process, just a mandatory night on the sidelines under the league's disciplinary system. For most teams, losing a star player for one game would be difficult. For the Indiana Fever, the impact could be enormous. Indiana was in the middle of a tightly contested playoff race where every win mattered. Clark wasn't simply one of the team's leading scorers. She was the engine that powered nearly everything the Fever did offensively. Her deep shooting stretches defenses far beyond the three-point line. Her passing creates open opportunities that few players can generate. Her pace changes the rhythm of an entire game. Take that player out of the lineup, even for one night, and the entire offensive identity has to change. That's not something coaches can fully prepare for in just a couple of days. Every rotation changes. Every defensive matchup shifts. Every offensive set has to be adjusted. It's far more complicated than replacing one player with another, and the potential consequences extend beyond Indiana's record. Throughout the season, Clark has helped generate unprecedented attention for the Wnba. Television ratings have climbed. Arena attendance has surged. National media coverage has expanded dramatically. Games featuring Clark have consistently drawn larger audiences, creating a level of mainstream interest that women's professional basketball has spent years working to achieve. That doesn't mean one player is bigger than the league, but it does explain why every storyline involving Clark now attracts enormous public attention. If an automatic suspension were ever to occur, the conversation would almost certainly extend far beyond one missed game. It would spark fresh debates about officiating, league policies, competitive fairness, and the direction of the Wnba itself. And judging by everything that's happened this season, that debate wouldn't end with the final buzzer. What makes this story even bigger isn't just the controversy, it's what's at stake. Every arena Caitlin Clark visits has become an event. Tickets disappear quickly. Television audiences rise. National sports shows devote more airtime to her games than ever before. League officials have publicly recognized that Clark has helped drive unprecedented attention to the Wnba, bringing new fans into the sport and expanding its visibility in remarkable ways. That raises an obvious question. If one of the league's biggest attractions were forced to miss a game because of an automatic suspension, what would that mean? It's no longer a distant possibility. It's a conversation that's getting closer every time another technical foul is assessed. That's why every Fever game now feels different. Fans aren't only watching the scoreboard anymore, they're watching every interaction with the officials. Every conversation, every whistle, every emotional reaction. The moment Clark turns toward a referee after a call, social media almost freezes. Thousands of fans wait to see whether the situation ends with a simple discussion or another technical foul. Very few athletes perform under that kind of microscope. Basketball is an emotional game. The best competitors play with passion, intensity, and relentless energy. Managing those emotions is difficult enough. Managing them while knowing another technical foul could trigger a suspension adds an entirely different level of pressure. It's a challenge few players in professional sports ever experience, and that pressure doesn't affect only Clark. It reaches the entire Indiana Fever organization. Coaches have to prepare for every possible scenario. Teammates understand how important every possession has become during a tightly contested playoff race. Broadcasters know every disputed whistle could become tomorrow's biggest headline. Even neutral fans have started paying closer attention because they know a routine technical foul could suddenly become national news. That's how much the spotlight has grown. At the same time, Clark has dealt with challenges on the court as well. Earlier in the season, she returned from injury under a minutes restriction, while continuing to adjust to the physical demands of professional basketball. Her games have frequently sparked conversations about defensive physicality, officiating standards, and the consistency of foul calls. Those discussions have generated passionate opinions from every side. Supporters believe the league should continue evaluating officiating consistency. Others argue that every star player faces difficult calls throughout a long season. Regardless of perspective, one thing is clear: the debate isn't disappearing. Instead, it keeps growing with every nationally televised game. What makes this entire situation so unusual is the contrast. Only days after producing one of the greatest statistical performances of her career, the biggest storyline surrounding Clark wasn't basketball. It was technical fouls, potential fines, and the possibility of a suspension. That's an extraordinary shift in narrative. For Indiana fans, every remaining game now carries two storylines. Can the Fever continue climbing the standings? And will Clark make it through another night without adding to her technical foul total? Those two questions now exist side by side. Throughout the season, Clark has repeatedly spoken about improving officiating consistency and has expressed support for expanding full-time professional officiating across the league. Her comments have focused on broader structural improvements rather than individual calls. Whether those ideas ultimately lead to future changes remains to be seen. For now, the discussion continues. Fans continue documenting every controversial whistle. National media continue debating officiating standards. Analysts continue asking difficult questions, And Clark continues playing under one of the brightest spotlights in professional sports. The countdown, however, remains part of the story. Every technical foul carries added significance. Every game feels just a little more intense. Every whistle has the potential to become tomorrow's headline. If an automatic suspension were ever to happen, it likely wouldn't be viewed as just another disciplinary decision. It would become one of the biggest stories of the Wnba season. Until then, everyone is watching, fans are watching, the media is watching, the fever are watching, and the league itself knows the spotlight isn't going anywhere. The biggest question isn't simply what happens next, it's whether the conversation surrounding officiating, consistency, and player management evolves before another controversial moment forces it back into the headlines. Because one thing is certain, this story is far from over. What do you think? Do you believe the league should make changes to its officiating system, or are the current rules being applied fairly? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because we'll continue following every major development as this story unfolds.